As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble.
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Son of a bitch. He stole my life.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Welcome back to the Shot by Shot podcast. Today, we get to talk about one of a filmmaker who has had some of the most influence on me of any film ever, and that is M. Night Shyamalan, who has just dropped his new film, Trap. M. Night Shyamalan is definitely one of the most well-known names of any filmmaker ever. He is kind of like a Tim Burton in that, you might not always see him on everyone's favorite directors list, but he's certainly one of the most famous directors, and without a doubt has had huge influence on film for the last 25 years. And, being from Philadelphia, like I always wanted to be a filmmaker. And there's always the thing of like, you can't really do it outside of LA or maybe New York. But seeing that M. Night had always had a successful career filming here, being from here and kind of staying in Philadelphia to make his films is, had a more inspiration on me than I could really express into words. So I always get very excited whenever he makes a film, because even though he's in America, he's not really a Hollywood guy, and he self-finances a lot of his films. And because he does that, I feel like he takes big swings, and he might not always hit, and sometimes his films are misses. And regardless of what the result of his films are, he's someone who's always bringing a creative vision to life and really does understand the craft of film, and is just such a great craftsman in film, and is always bringing creative storytelling. He's always trying something new. He's never resorting to the generic option. And whether or not he hits or misses on his films, there's always interesting things to talk about. But luckily, this film is not a miss. I think, unfortunately, the Letterboxd score is much lower than we all think it deserves. It's interesting because pretty much everyone I follow has this film at like a 3.5 and above. So I'm surprised that the average score is so low. I guess I could see why some people didn't love it as much, but like it definitely is not a film that belongs to the twos by any means. And yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I know both Oscar and Ryan did as well. So we have a lot to talk about. It's unfortunate that this will be the only the second best film released in August of 2024 that's set in Pennsylvania and has the name Trap in it. Because let's not forget that Jeff Prophet will be dropping Princess of the Trap House later this month. But let's get right into it. What are your thoughts on M. Night Shyamalan's latest film?
I was so excited for this film. I thought the trailers were really fantastic. I've over kind of like the past year or so, I've become a bigger fan of M. Night than I was originally, especially in his kind of last couple months. I've really kind of grown to recognize his ability as a director, and yeah, he's made some absolutely fantastic films, some really, really great ones. And he, like you said, always has original ideas, always bringing something new to the table. Is like the most ridiculous concepts, and it's so good to see. Kind of coming from old and Knock at the Cabin, I think those are two really, really great films from both visual and direction standpoints, and this is absolutely no different. M. Night and Mukdeeprom, who is quite possibly the best working DP in the business right now, they cooked so hard on this film. The visuals were absolutely on point throughout the entire film. Every shot kind of just holds on for the perfect amount of time, and the lighting I thought was absolutely gorgeous. I thought it really kind of captures kind of emotions and kind of sweat really well on the face. I really like when lighting really pinpoints like when somebody's nervous, and you can see that through their sweat, and the lighting is just perfect. And I think they strike that perfect combination in the film. There's so many kind of uncomfortable sequences, and that is down to the composition and where everyone's framed in the shot, and just visually perfect. A film maybe to some people's disliking is a film about coincidences. There's so many hilarious coincidences in this film that we'll get into later. I think it's brilliant. I guess if you can't buy into the ridiculousness, then you're not gonna like it. But I absolutely did, and I thought this was an incredible film. A lot of people had problems with the third act. I absolutely loved it. Especially kind of the final 15 minutes in particular. I thought those were so good. And Josh Hartnett is definitely one of my favorite performances of the year so far. Absolutely. And I think M. Night in this in particular just cares so much about his family. You know, he cast his daughter, who's actually a singer, as kind of that kind of lead part of the concert. Who had I wasn't expecting her to have as big as a part as she actually did in the film, because you kind of like get from the trailers that she's the one performing at the concert, but no, she isn't. We'll be going into spoilers, but yeah, he cares so much about his family, and I think this is kind of echoed in this film. There's a lot of themes touched about family relationships and growing up with kids and kind of responsibilities, and I think this is such a beautiful and dark film. But yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's like kind of like you could like sit there and be like cinema sins and like kind of go after so many parts of this, but it really is just kind of like sit back and just enjoy the ride of it. I think it's a really fun movie. I don't adore M. Night as like both of you, I think, and he's made a lot of films that I really love. And he's actually really missed, I think, for someone who has such a weird reputation. So he's been working for so long and made so many big swings, and I think that's bound to happen eventually, just to have a couple of duds in your filmography. But he's someone that I more really respect for his commitment to making those original personal films more outside the Hollywood system of his last four recently. Yeah, like you were saying, I just love how M. Night kind of expresses his worry of like balancing his work life and personal life with his daughter, and kind of ties those things so well into, like you were saying, with the daughter performing in the concert. There was a billboard for the watchers even when they're walking into the concert. There's like just hints at his whole family in this movie. I really like when he makes these movies really personal. Yeah, I was really excited for this when Oscar talked about that when Mukdeeprom was attached to this, the DP. He had already like delivered some of my favorite moments of the year with Challengers, so I was really excited to see what he was going to do with M. Night, especially after his last film probably being one of his best shot of his career, maybe. And I think it really delivered in this movie. I was not disappointed. He's someone that likes to shoot in 35 millimeter films, so I was really excited about that as well. It looked really good. There's the strong reds, the lights in the concerts. There's some really great shots in here with even some split diopter shots, which I was excited about. Yeah, just a really fun theatre experience overall. Josh Hartnett, really great in this role. I really loved him in this, the lead role. Probably one of the best of the year, honestly. I loved him as that like embarrassing dad, which the dialogue conversation is so weird around this character. I feel like it's pretty normal for this relationship of him being the like dorky dad almost. And I did not understand the dialogue complaints for him specifically for this. I thought it really worked for me, and I liked him kind of splitting those two sides of his life together with the killer and the dad. So yeah, there's just I really loved like the whole Josh Hartnett thing, and it's really different for M. Night's films as well, because I feel like there's always that talk about the twist ruining or making his films. The point where it's almost hurt him, because I feel like it's all the people talk about now really is what's the big twist going to be. But this was a bit different, where it's almost as if you know the twist going in, and it's kind of him trying to work his way outside the stadium. So yeah, it's a pretty different premise for M. Night's films. I thought it was a really interesting kind of concept, so I was really excited for it. Yeah, fun movie. I was high 3.5 for me. Sits at the top of my M. Night ranking. Really close to almost being his best. Honestly, I think it'll probably be one that I revisit a lot. So yeah, I really love this one.
Yeah, for me, this is a 4.5. Like I said, really loved it. Second best M. Night for me behind Signs. I think I have this 6th of the year. But yeah, really great time with this one.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my higher films on the year. There hasn't been a ton this year that I've really loved, and this is definitely one of my higher anticipated films this year. And luckily, this one didn't disappoint like some others have. So yeah, I mean, this film it's just a very solid 4 stars for me. Probably, I think it's like 7th on my M. Night ranking at the moment, which is solid. Like I'm higher on a lot of his films than most people. So I really did enjoy this a lot, and I agree with Ryan that it's really not a plot twist film like normally M. Night is. Like that's probably his most signature defining trait is his plot twist, but it really isn't that. And he really clearly, as just about everyone has mentioned, their Letterboxd reviews, is taking a lot of influence from Alfred Hitchcock here. And because Hitchcock is, in a lot of ways, aside from Psycho, he's kind of like the opposite of the plot twist director, where he's all about giving you a lot of information and like giving you information rather than withholding it and hitting you by surprise later. So it was really interesting to see him kind of challenge himself to do more of a Hitchcock style thriller rather than the normal M. Night style of thriller, where it's more about the mystery. But I still think, even though he gives us so much Hitchcock style information, that there still always feels like so much we don't know. And there still is a great sense of mystery here. But yeah, M. Night is just, I think, one of the most fearless filmmakers of the last 25 years. And this film really is a completely different film on a rewatch. Like, there's just so much kind of dramatic irony, whether it's on a first watch or a second watch, where he constantly makes us an insider here with that Hitchcock style of giving us information. Also, I saw this for the first time 2 days ago on Alfred Hitchcock's birthday, which just felt very right and fitting. But he just gives us a lot of information to create this. We're always insiders at all times. Like, when, except for the very beginning, like when he talks to the one guy at the t-shirt stand, and he just uses like this really unsettling angle where they're both talking into the camera, and it's just like frontal shots. Like, you don't normally see the images even though it's still kind of like just a standard talking head coverage. He composes these shots in ways that you don't normally see for a conversation like this, which just adds another layer of making it unsettling. And the fact that we have so much information, we just feel like insiders to everything the entire film, which creates a great sense of dread. And I think Hitchcock, I mean, M. Night does such a great job of kind of manipulating our focus and what we pay attention to and who we root for, where we know early on that he's this murdering psychopath, but I feel like for most of the audience, some people might disagree, there's a part of us that kind of is like rooting for him and doesn't want to see him get caught. I think a big part of that is because of the presence of his daughter, and we don't want to see him get caught in front of her. Because M. Night, one really subtle thing that he does is he opens up with the daughter. That's the first shot before we even see the father, who's the main character. We see the daughter. So because there's just so much emphasis placed on her, and all of the first interactions are really centered around her, it really kind of draws us into the caring about the father-daughter relationship, and like caring about the daughter's situation, and like her having a good time at the concert, that by the time we learn the twist, we're already kind of invested. Not the twist, but we learn who this character really is. We're already invested in him as a father. So it just makes everything more difficult. And like when we see like the floorboards rise, and he has that escape that he can't take, like we're kind of rooting for him, whether it's just the movie watching instinct of like wanting the protagonist to get what they want, or like just wanting to see if they're capable of getting away. There is like this kind of dread of him getting caught, even though this is a character who we don't want to root for in any way because he's a absolute psychopath. But I think M. Night does a really good job of just manipulating our focus and kind of what we're paying attention to, with as well as that Hitchcock style. Obviously, there's tons of influence from Psycho in this film, but kind of the Psycho one thing it's very famous for is the swapping of protagonists throughout the film. And I feel like M. Night does that here, with like the daughter kind of feeling like she's going to be the main character in the very beginning. And then Cooper, the father, becomes the main character. But I feel like kind of once we get into the second half, M. Night's daughter really is the one who then becomes the main character and the one who we're rooting for. So we kind of go from like identifying with Cooper as the main character into him becoming like the antagonist as the pop star played by M. Night's daughter, Lady Raven or something Raven, becomes our protagonist. And in terms of that manipulation of focus, he does that with her as well, in that he really manipulates our distance from her, where normally someone would record a concert, there would be like close-up insert shots of the performer on stage. And I noticed early on that we were just kept at such a distance from her, which also seems surprising considering it's M. Night's daughter. And then when we go, the concert ends, she kind of walks up into a close-up, and there kind of is that protagonist swap that we have, where now we just throughout the film become closer and closer to her as the film progresses, from like the distance of like seeing her outside where we can't even see her face, to from a distance to when she looks at us while they're backstage and she's about to go on stage with her. into ultimately getting those close-up shots and becoming our protagonist. So I think the way he manipulates our distance from that character also really works well. And like I said, this is a campy genre film, but M. Night has he's been doing this a while. Like, this is not his first rodeo. In all his years, he's developed such a kind of a sense for the craft in a way that very few filmmakers showcase. And he's just always bringing something creative, and he really does know how to kind of manipulate our focus and who we identify with in this film, which I think is just truly such a strength to it.
Yeah, M. Night as a director is crazy. I think in particular, I love how in kind of in specific in the concert bits, I love how the camera is following a lot of Cooper's movements. We're not kind of always having static shots. We're kind of starting down, and he's picking up something, and the camera will move with him, or the camera will just move where he's directing. We get that kind of lovely panning shot where the phones are all out, and he's kind of looking around. The camera's kind of moving around as well. Is so great. And like you were talking about, Alex, the kind of the shots of the people looking directly in the camera is really awkward, but it's very uncomfortable as well. There's just something so off about kind of the angle that they're looking at, and kind of the way M. Night kind of frames the sequences, specifically kind of height. Josh Hartnett's kind of the camera's a bit lower, and he's kind of looking down on the kind of that mother, that lady she's talking to, and then with her, it's kind of from his perspective, almost like she's looking up to him. And we also get those a lot of kind of real extreme close-ups on Cooper's eyes, which I think work brilliantly, especially those ones with the red lighting. Oh, so nice. And then we kind of furthering into kind of this idea of Cooper's kind of two halves, and we get those lovely kind of half face shots of loads of negative space. Anytime any of those shots came up, I was like, oh yes, I was like mini fist pump. I love those shots.
That's honestly, I feel like, become his new signature shot. Like, he used that a lot in Knock at the Cabin. It's half face at the edge of the frame shot. I feel like that's his new signature shot.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's to have it as a signature shot and actually mean something every time, not just be a signature thing. It's oh, we're just going to chuck this in here for no reason. But it works so well. And the bird's eye shots I thought worked brilliantly as well. I like how the film takes its time as well. We get to the concert quickly. That's kind of the opening, but we're slowly building. I saw someone perfectly described as a ticking time bomb. It is, and I think M. Night kind of executes the perfect moment to explode this film at the perfect time. It doesn't rush into it. He doesn't leave it too long, but it goes at the perfect time. I'm happy the trailers didn't show a lot either. I was kind of, a lot of people were the trailers are showing too much, but no, we only really see the stadium bits, and the whole kind of last third of the film is left a lot to a surprise. But yeah, that was Ryan. Was there only one split diopter shot? I think I only spotted one.
Yeah, I only spotted one. That's when the main investigator, FBI person.
Yeah. It's two on stage in the background, and she's in the forefront.
I actually think there's another. It's when I'm not 100% sure it's a split diopter, because I can't remember if he's in focus, but there's it's when they're backstage after the concert's ended, and on the right there's the control room where they're watching all the men leave the concert.
That's such a good shot. Yeah. I don't think it might be.
I'm sure it's a split diopter though, because he
might be. It looks like it, but thank you for reminding me about that shot, because that's one of my favorite shots of the thing as well. I like it when those kind of shots are kind of used when people are communicating, like they're listening in, and I think it works. I think Brian De Palma does it in Blowout as well with his split diopter. I don't know if it is split diopter in this, but I think those kind of shots, the way they're composed and the way they're kind of used to kind of, like I said, people are listening in, I think it works so well. And that's exactly what it was used for here. Yeah, definitely one of the best shots of the film for me.
Yeah, some of the shots were really interesting. You were saying, Alex, you were talking about the one where they were looking straight at the camera. I seen that M. Night actually set up mirrors so that when they were delivering the dialogue, they'd be basically looking at the other character still, even though they're looking at the camera. That was sounded really cool. Yeah, you explained it like a ticking time bomb. It really is like the bomb under the table kind of Hitchcock. Well, Alex was saying I noticed a lot of like Hitchcock stuff here. I said in my review that he outcocked the De Palma in his Stadium Thriller. Which yeah, I did not expect that from him. Also there's the kind of like voyeurism of like looking at the security going about and stuff that I did expect. I love one location films, and it instantly reminded me because of the stadium of De Palma's Snake Eyes, which is completely set in the stadium. That one's a boxing match, so the stage is in the middle, so it's pretty different. I think that adds a little bit more of a dynamic of like the voyeuristic kind of nature of it, because there's a lot. Well, it's like a 360 degree around you at that point in a boxing ring, so there's a lot more going on. But I still really liked like the aspects of that in this film. I thought it was a really strong point of it, and definitely there's a lot of Hitchcock stuff there. With like constantly checking the security and like what's going on, and that trap door under the floor. But yeah, I was also thrown away at the end where it's revealed that Josh Hartnett's almost this like Norman Bates type killer, where he's like almost having a like psychotic breakdown, like having visions of his mother. He was pretty much was Norman Bates. So yeah, there's also those aspects of Psycho.
Yeah, I think Josh Hartnett's performance is such an interesting performance because when I first started watching the film, I was just thinking like this. I was like interested in the film. I'm like M Night's filmmaking's on point, but I'm like this line delivery is just not good. I'm like it's just not good. It wasn't even the performance; like his facial acting was good, but I'm like, what? The line delivery is just not there, and I was kind of disappointed by it. And then like as the film progresses, it just makes total sense because most actors who are not good at delivering dialogue, it's because they're not comfortable. Like most bad acting is simply a case of not being comfortable in front of the camera or not being comfortable with this action or this line or this character in front of the camera. That's the root of not all but a lot of weaker acting. And let's be honest, most people in life when they're lying or like trying to be something they're not are bad actors. Most people in life are not good actors. And here what we have is we have a good actor playing a bad actor. His line delivery always feels awkward and not normal and like he's not comfortable in front of the camera because the character isn't normal and isn't comfortable in these situations, which is why it feels just so off. It's not even like you can pinpoint what it is. I kind of wish that I was able to watch it for a third time before doing this episode because I would like to really, on another watch, like take real notes of just all of the vocal tones throughout the film and the way that those kind of evolve in different situations. But it just always feels so off his line delivery. And it's because he's so uncomfortable in all these interactions. And it's not like we typically will see in films like this, the killer who's like just very composed in front of everyone and always maintains their cool. And he's really not that. I think most serial killers in situations like this would struggle to maintain an image of being normal. Now, it might be subtle enough, like this case, where it's not so off that it's going to make everyone think, oh, this guy's a serial killer. They'll probably just think he's a bit of a weird guy. But I think just the way he captures someone who's uncomfortable in these situations is just such a great performance. I agree with Oscar that this is one of the best performances of the year because he never seems normal for a second. Before I knew that he was a serial killer, I'm like, something's off about this guy. I didn't think it was like, I thought at the time it was bad acting, but it was just, he never feels normal for a second. And I think, everyone kind of, M. Night plays around with distraction a lot. And I'll talk a bit more later about what he does with kind of bringing in the pop star element to it. But everything in the first 20 minutes of this film, 15 to 20 minutes, is so distracted by the pop star and the Raven show that like everyone's watching her in the bright bold blue as she walks down outside. Like we're all so caught up in the concert that no one is paying attention to this random dad. Like first you're paying attention to the concert and then you're paying attention to like the kids who are like the real fans of the concert and who like it's made for. The last guy anyone's paying attention to is the dad who's just there because his daughter wants to go. Like he's obviously not, this means nothing to him. He doesn't care about this concert. So he's like the last guy anyone's paying attention to. And the way M. Night creates that sense of distraction from the guy who is the most significant person in this arena. And Yeah, it does kind of always feel like he's hiding something, especially when you watch it on a rewatch. And like Hitchcock, I think everyone always talks about like the Hitchcock bomb theory as his most defining trait, but I honestly think the most defining trait of Hitchcock is his use of point of view. And maybe that's just because it's the most that has influenced me of Hitchcock, but Hitchcock films are very much just very point of view heavy and a constant showing of what the character sees and how they react to it. And before we know that he's a serial killer, there's this POV shot of Cooper watching the police escort someone out. And when you see that Hitchcock POV shot on a rewatch, it just has a whole different feeling because we're already seeing his kind of nervousness about just any interactions with the police or SWAT team, whoever it might be. So, and I just think like when you see this film on a rewatch, you start to notice even more subtleties to his performance, which I think just really is great. And yeah, he just there's just I think great range to the performance as well. He captures that emotional complexity of the fact that like we've seen serial killer movies, but the fact that M Night strengthens the father daughter relationship to start it really does kind of just change our whole perspective on it, and he captures that two sides of this character's personality really well, and then just so many subtle things as well, like when he goes in to talk to Raven in private and eventually does the unexpected tactic of telling her who he is. Like he's just laughing in the beginning, and it's just so like weird and unsettling. It's just not like normal human behavior. So yeah, I just think he really did give one of the great performances of the year, and he's not going to get any award recognition. I'd be very surprised if he did, and likely won't be in a lot of the conversation for the best performances of the year. But I really do think that it deserves to be brought up in that conversation.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying about the way kind of M Night puts us into this concert experience of the film. He talks about it in interviews, like he wanted the audience to kind of. It was like he described it as like you're not watching a film necessarily. You want it to be the concert to be the forefront, and kind of everything else starts happening in the background. And I think that's like what you said. That works so well. Um, as kind of a setup to what happens later in the film, kind of this distraction, drawing your attention from what's actually going on. And I liked those prolonged sequences and shots of just things happening in the concert, her performing, constantly panning around this, like he slowly kind of builds on this paranoia as you start to go along. And I think it works so well. I think there's some really kind of fantastic commentary on fandoms in this film that I think, especially kind of later down the line in this film, kind of phone usage and social media in particular, that I was surprised to see, but I thought they were woven in really brilliantly. And like we said, Lady Raven, played by his daughter, I think it's Salika, is it? Salika?
Sure how you pronounce it. Salika. I believe it's
Yeah.
Salika. I'm not quite sure if that's the correct pronunciation.
She kind of has a lot bigger role in the second half of this film, and I think that kind of works well with the concert experience in the first half because her role shifts, and then we kind of move over to this idea of how the responsibility that big kind of stars and icons have, and I think that again, an unexpected kind of woven idea into this film is kind of the kind of responsibility and idealism of big stars on top of this kind of father-daughter relationship. But yeah, I thought the way I think there's a lot of people will just kind of see this as kind of surface level kind of stuff, I guess. But I think there's just so much to look into this in film, like I was mentioning, so many kind of hidden themes that maybe a lot of people aren't picking up on. You can tell by the average rating, but yeah, really fantastic from that standpoint.
Yeah, I totally agree with Josh Hartnett's performance. I mean, this guy is like an actual psychopath in like every aspect of his life. He's trying to hide and he's putting on an act. So I think that perfectly plays into the kind of performance that he's giving here. Both sides feel like an act put on by him. Even like the dad side and the killer are just acting like a normal guy side outside the stadium. I liked how his personality is almost split when he like left the daughter as well. We get these like great comedic moments where he leaves the daughter at her seat and he goes into like outside into the stadium bit and he's trying to kind of almost break into different sections of the stadium, get access, and that delivers honestly some of the funniest scenes of the year. He's almost like a Hitman level character. Honestly, I like the merchandise guy that you were talking about. Alex, he's one of the MVPs of the movie. Honestly, he was
He
so
is the
funny.
MVP of the movie. That's my favorite character.
The mid-credit scene had me dying.
That was hilarious.
One of the best credit scenes I've ever seen, and gotta love the Sixers hoodie as well. M Knight's a season ticket holder. He's at just about every game, so let's go Sixers. But yeah, I love that guy.
Everyone in my screening had stood up to leave, and that scene started, and they all stopped to stand and watch it, and like everybody was losing it, like more than like any other joke in the movie. People really loved that scene. Yeah, I love the scene where he takes him back to the like merchandise bit to get you the t-shirt, and he's like playing with the blade and stuff and like giving it back to him. And there's almost this like tension where is he gonna, or at least like back and forth, is he gonna end up killing him? Yeah, that payoff when he's watching it on TV and realizes that he's the killer. It's so good.
You get that lovely shot when they're having the bit behind by the t-shirt. Is like the camera's kind of in on the shelves of the warehouse. And you kind of got these two in the gap where a box would be, and it's great shot. Just wanted to add that in there. I just remembered that. I'm just remembering as we're going along, because I've only seen it once, how some of my favorite shots of the film. But yeah, that was another great one.
Yeah, there was so many good moments outside the arena, but like the kicking the drunk girl down the stairs, exploding the oil on the workers' faces, like
that was crazy.
That was brutal.
And then
crazy.
The woman that kept coming up to him,
I kind of like
friend's mum.
Like I was mentioning before, this film obviously plays on a lot of coincidences, ridiculous coincidences that are hilarious, and I think it's hard to strike a balance between having such a ridiculous film and kind of being face value, being quite serious. And I think Josh Hartnett in particular really strikes that well. Obviously, the coincidences, like there's just scenes where I think he'll just be in one place, he's gone to another. We just won't see how that's happened, and it happens multiple times. That scene where it's like in the kitchen, we just never see him put the things in the oil thing, and it doesn't even look like to us that he's done it. Like how has he got there? How has he done that? I think the funniest coincidence is right at the start of the film with it when they go to park for the stadium. Like, you're never parking for a concert at a stadium that close at the actual stadium parking. That's never happening. Never ever happening. I'm trying to think of well, I guess the ones towards the end with the in the limo when he escapes, and having that tunnel out of his house, just this repetitive nature, which for some people won't work well, but it's just like the cat and mouse. It just keeps on going and it keeps on going, and then obviously the ending. I think is so good.
There's like three endings that could have been in this movie, honestly.
Oh yeah, it's like is it going to end here? No, it's not. Actually, I wanted to add that when I was talking about the use of phones and social media, that scene after they've gone out and after he's kind of told her that scene when Cooper tells Lady Raven who he actually is. That I was like sweating in my seat. I was like, this is really, really tense, but it's also like it's such a stupid thing to do. Like, I don't know about you guys, but did anyone else think that he was gonna put the tattoos that he got in the gift bag over his tattoo on his wrist? That was like the most obvious thing to do, because they had been said like, oh, he's got a tattoo on his wrist. I was like, oh, there's tattoos in the bag. Like, I was like, he has to just put the tattoo over the thing. That's what he's gonna do. But no, he doesn't. He goes and tells her, and I think it's great that the FBI like over like the walkie-talkies are just, oh, this guy is so smart. He's gonna know our every move, and he just ends up doing like the stupidest things by the end of it. And he's slow. Like at the start, you think he's really smart, and it's just his kind of character and his level of intelligence is just decreasing as the film goes on. Well, I guess the ending maybe not so much, but Yeah, that scene in the bathroom when Lady Raven locks herself in there, and he's like banging on the thing. That kind of where she starts the live video, that the kind of usage of social media and phones that I was going on about, I think is worked very well here, because like no shot there's like somebody in your life that is living exactly where you tell, with a statue in the door. It's so funny.
That's the only scene I didn't
No
like.
way that's just
That
happened.
was ridiculous.
We want to talk about plot
It's
holes.
so funny though.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about
It's
plot
so-
holes, there's a lot of them. Because honestly, in that scene as well, it's like you're nervous that he's going to kill the guy with the phone, so you need him to escape in time. Tell everyone alive and throw the phone in the fucking toilet. And then he can't kill the guy. I'm just like, why?
That's why it's so good though.
No, there's a lot of plot holes. Like, it is like Ryan said, just better if you just kind of just go for the ride and enjoy it. But I can't believe neither of you mentioned what I think is easily the most glaring plot hole, which is this is supposed to be an international, like, super famous pop star who's like such a famous star that she can find some random guy who lives up the street needed. Why is the concert in the middle of the day? Has anyone ever seen a concert?
They mentioned it at the start.
Oh, did they?
Was it for charity, or she done like a special concert during the day as like an extra thing? They mentioned it at the start.
Yeah,
of the film.
yeah, they mentioned it at the start. Like this was an extra thing. Was it just to find the
Oh
him?
yeah. There was a reason they gave, I think, at the start, like on the
Yeah.
news or whatever it was.
Yeah, there was. I do remember it now.
It still seems stupid, and it makes the aesthetic of the film uglier.
I
So
guess.
I think it just makes.
I
those-
was worried about that, but the fact that it's like a closed roof concert, it didn't really affect it much. Like it
Yeah.
would, if it hadn't been dark inside there, it would have really affected the kind of whole like vibe of the concert. But I
Yeah,
didn't mind it too much.
I mean, if it's an outdoor concert, it would make sense why it's during the day, though. But like, I've never seen a concert during the day, let alone one of the biggest stars. So that just didn't make sense to me. It made the aesthetic uglier. I'm sure, yeah, maybe I missed the one line, but yeah, I mean, there's a couple. Like, there's like if the whole SWAT team's outside, you're telling me half the stadium's not going to be panicking. Like, I understand the social, like the pop star distraction, but like
Mhm.
you can look out the window and see the entire SWAT team lined up. You're telling me half of the stadium isn't going to be shitting themselves? Like,
Average
running?
day in Philly.
I mean, yeah, I guess you're probably right. The difference is the SWAT team.
Again, I think that's why it works so well, because they don't just they don't just like, oh, we're going to deal with this one coincidence. They just leave all coincidences aside, and they just, oh, we'll just let them play out. And I know people probably get cool kind of hypocritical or whatever, but I generally, it works. It just plays and plays on this film's strength so well. How silly it is, but I guess you just have to buy into that.
I agree. Like, you talked about the fryer scene. You have cameras monitoring every inch, and no one saw him. I know we don't see it, but like no camera picked up him going and putting those things in the fryer. You have cameras covering every inch of the fucking place. You got the whole SWAT team, and the camera can't pick up him dropping those things in the fryer, or another one of the workers. But yeah, and then there's another one. Yeah, this is the phone.
There was one I noticed how when they leave, if she's supposed to be
the
like
other
this like
thing.
Taylor Swift level artist, like she leaves that concert with no
That was my
security.
next one. That's exactly my next one.
And when he first goes into the toilet, and we like, first thing we get to see is the butch. He takes out his phone. The phone has sound on, and everyone else, like, the toilets are full, and everyone will just hear the guy that's on his phone just screaming and panicking. You can hear it.
Right.
It's so funny.
And like the entourage one, they literally say the only people who don't have to go through clearance are her and her entourage, and then she has no entourage. Like, she's like, even if she's like small time people, like, have like, whether it's a manager or their mother, like someone, a friend, like there's no shot that she's just by herself at this concert. Like, that's honestly, I think, another one of the like just most obvious ones.
For anyone watching, this is all complimentary, by the way.
Yeah, we don't care.
We're not. I'm not taking the mix. I think it's purposely done brilliantly for this film's benefit. But yeah, but generally though, there are some, especially kind of towards the end, some incredibly intense scenes. I think my favorite scene of the film by far was the scene between him and his wife. A scene that reminded me that the scene with Alfred Molina and Boogie Nights. We have this kettle that is kind of framed as kind of this center point of this scene, and it's constantly boiling and it's getting louder, and it just reminded me of the firecrackers in that scene. And I thought it was done so well. Like the whole film was just boiling and boiling and boiling until you kind of get to the end of it, and it worked brilliantly. I thought that was such a good scene. Really, really great.
Yeah, I think the mother also gives a great performance in limited screen time. Like that, when Raven mentions the butcher, when like she's first meeting the mother's like totally fumbling on her words. She's like, "Oh, the butcher, yeah," and then she's just totally fumbling on her words. You might not pick on a first watch. Some audience members are going to catch it, some won't. Like some people are definitely going to be thinking, like, "Okay, is she in on it? Does she know?" But on a rewatch, like you really pick up on it, and yeah, she really you on a rewatch when you can really see her fumbling on her words. Like she's like, "Oh yeah, I had a nightmare about him the other night," but like the way she delivers the line, it's like she so obviously did not have a nightmare about him. So I think she did a really good job there as well. I didn't love the third act. Like I know Oscar said that you did. I actually did. I do think it fell off in the third act. I think that's a bit of a problem that in some M Night's films where I think he kind of sometimes over explains a bit too much and kind of wraps it would benefit from wrapping them up a little sooner. I have the same thing with Old where I feel like if he left it ambiguous and didn't kind of explain everything at the end, it would have been a little better. And I think he kind of like that last maybe 10 minutes of the film wasn't totally needed. But yeah, that's just my opinion on it.
I did like the house sections, just like her playing with him and like joking, playing the piano and stuff like that, just playing with him the whole time. I the one thing that you mentioned that I just couldn't deal with the Instagram live scene. That was like the one thing I just couldn't like just move on from, because I just hate when people do like live streams of movies in general. It wasn't even that it was like a plot thing. It's just I just hate when they do that. I don't like that incorporated into the film. But yeah, that was like the one thing that I couldn't get over. I loved how it just kept like ending and then having a twist, and he would just somehow keep going. It was almost like the end of like the Glass trilogy. Like if this was made like 10 years ago, it feels like it would be connected to that, and that there'd be like a post-credit scene of him like joining the team. Like that fatal shot of him escaping in the police car. It feels like there's almost it might even set up.
Can you
another trilogy
imagine?
here.
Just Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson show up at the end of this film. That'd be so funny.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Oh,
Like it's
dear.
an ultra contemporary film, and like I normally think when you use like iPhones and social media and film, like it comes across as corny and stuff. Like I just think that it's not a lot of people execute it well. So I get what you mean. I do think like kind of touching on like what Oscar was mentioning with like social media, it really showcases like the mass effects of superstars in today's age and like the mass influence and the effects that can have. Because like if it's not for Raven, they could never catch this guy. Like they could not have caught her without her influence. And if she was someone who didn't have the mass influence that she has, like like they wouldn't have been able to catch him. So I think it really does do a good job of kind of just touching on like the mass effects. Like also like the her influence becomes a distraction as well, like for her and him to escape in the limo as well. So I think they do a good job, even though like I agree the Instagram live stuff's a little corny. Like it does a good job of just showcasing like the mass influence and how that can be used in different ways of pop stars or influencers or whoever that might be with yeah, like just the way that it's used multiple times and that they wouldn't have been able to catch him without her influence, which I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did like it was how it was used in the limo scene where he escapes. Yeah.
And yeah, it's the year of the Shyamalans. It's he's I guess a very proud father here. It was his very very proud father this year. His one daughter made a film. His other daughter's one of the stars of this film. So I do love seeing like the kind of family business element, like having also watchers, like the ad. Like I like how it's like almost like kind of like a family business to them. So I think it's pretty cool to see.
Also, soundtrack was banging as well. The songs were great.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Genuinely thought.
I think that's completely different to what she actually does as well. Like, it's a completely different
Yeah,
genre.
it is.
One of my major issues with the film, which is not going to be an issue for most people, is that he didn't film this in Philly, and that's because like growing
I
up,
was
like it
waiting for
was
I
this.
like
thought it was going to be that. I was watching it. I was like, it's set in Philadelphia, and I heard it had been filmed in Toronto. I knew you were going to pick up on that.
I didn't know that. I knew it like almost like the first shot of the film, and I knew it right away when there's a street sign. It's in one of the first 5 shots of the film. There's a 9th Street street sign, and the shape of the street sign is you'll only see that in Philly. But the font I knew was off. I'm like, that's fake. I could just tell like it was the size of the font or something. I knew right away. I'm like, that's fake.
Did the street exactly.
And then after that, as soon as I saw the stadium, I'm like, that's not the Wells Fargo Center. I'm like, that's then I knew right away. And the reason it bothers me is growing up in a city where there is no real film business and like wanting to make films in a city where there isn't like it's not LA or New York. Like it was always so inspiring to me as like a younger aspiring filmmaker, seeing someone who was capable of doing it and like the excitement of seeing those familiar locations. And I think M. Night is really such an inspiration to anyone in the city who wants to be a filmmaker. So, and it's like instead of seeing the excitement of seeing the familiar places that we know, I'm instead like laughing at the artifice of like the CGI'd Liberty 2 that doesn't look real in the background, or the like the fake 9th Street sign, which probably a lot of people probably wouldn't notice that one, but I do like I just keep catching like these like the fact that it's not the Wells Fargo Center and it's like just noticing the artifice. So, and it was for tax credit reasons. I understand this is a business. I understand there's a lot of like money and decisions involved. He's got like full police trucks in this, so this is clearly not a cheap film to make. And it's probably I don't know what the budget was, but I'm gonna guess that this is one of the bigger budgets that he's worked with. I could be wrong, but the fake Philly definitely like it just was disappointing to see because he was such an inspiration because of that. And like I remember being a kid and like seeing like being told like yeah, like Shyamalan always makes all his films here, and just the excitement about that. So the fact that like this film didn't kind of carry on that signature part of his style for me definitely was a big disappointment. He still brings the love of the city. Like he has, the cops still have the same badges and uniforms. You see Philadelphia mentioned multiple times. You see like it labeled on the uniforms of the SWAT team. He's got the guy with the Sixers hoodie, which I love to see. So like he still did show his love for the city here. I just really wish he filmed it here. I also kind of wish that, once again, I understand this is a business and there's big money sponsors at play, but like I do wish he kind of would incorporate more of the local businesses in some of those scenes. Like when they're at the Shake Shack, I'm like, I just wish that was like Chickies and Pete's or Tony Luke's or something you would see in a local stadium, because I just wish that, and I understand like Shake Shack probably showed up with a big paycheck. This is business, but it would have been nice to see him kind of use more of those local businesses in those areas. But yeah, I mean, he still is always fighting to get more tax credits here. He's always like an inspiration for local filmmakers. And yeah, I think, I still like, of course, have such respect for what he does. It was very disappointing for me because I knew by like third shot of the film, it wasn't in Philly, and I was very let down.
It was $30 million budget. It's his biggest budget since he went independent in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, he self-finances a lot of his stuff. I know Warner Brothers is involved. I don't know. Do you know if Warner Brothers picked this up, or were they involved in the production?
I'm not sure.
Because if they
I'm
were
not sure, actually. That's a good question.
Because if they were involved in production, that would explain a lot of it. Because it probably didn't have the final say of that. And it's like, I know that
in 2022, Universal announced the film.
Yep. Yeah, I know Cincinnati offered a lot of tax credits, and then Toronto is famously has really good tax credits. So I think that was a big part of it. But still disappointing.
I went and checked where Snake Eyes was shot, because I was going to try and entice you to watch that if it was shot in Philly, even though it's set in Las Vegas, but that was also shot in Canada.
Yeah. Fucking Canada, man. South Park said, bro, blame Canada. Do we want to go into
it was with Universal, but then it changed. It was Universal, but then it changed to Warner Bros.
Yeah, he's made a couple of films at Universal, at least in terms of distribution.
And
You could
he's
just
been
tell-
saying in interviews he just has ideas for his next 3 to 4 films. So keep them coming.
Yeah, he's so like efficient. Like he did not get the
Love to see
cabinet
it.
or old 2 years before that. Like he turns them out. Like he doesn't.
I'm sure he's gonna have
Mm.
a serial killer trilogy, and
And
they'll all come up at the end.
he's not like a Guy Ritchie where he's just been making films every year and they've all been slop. His films are actually good.
because he's from Philly and not
Yeah.
from the UK.
Guy Ritchie is such a hag now. He turns up
it's such a
he
fraud.
turns up the most Amazon Prime original films in history, and just every year, and they're just all the same, and it's slop. It's so funny.
It's not even as if he does the Amazon movies to get like his own movie. It's like every movie is like just the business, like for hire movie. Straight to
I
streaming.
know I know. Straight to streaming. Oh dear.
Our Q&A. First question
Yup.
from this kind of was answered 2 weeks ago, but we have a question from Ben, only Ben. He said, "What's your favorite? What's your favorite film from a director who you think is the most underappreciated?" I think we kind of answered that, but me, the one my top of my list was Michelangelo Antonioni, and I said,
Yeah,
London.
answered that in our last episode.
So let's move on from that. Question from Will: who would you like to see host the next Oscars? That's a tough question.
Ooh.
Because I'm going
Who's
to
the
forget.
guy that had the segment last year? Maloney, is it? He voices the pig in Spider-Verse. He had like a short segment last year, but I'd love to
John
see him
Maloney,
host
is
it.
that
Who
what
is
his
it?
name
I've
is?
forgotten his name.
Tony
Yeah,
Hinch-
John Maloney.
Tony Hinchcliffe's my pick.
Maloney, yeah, Maloney. He's so good.
Tony Hinchcliffe, he crushed
Wait,
Tom
what
Brady.
did you say?
I said Tony Hinchcliffe. He was in the roast of Tom Brady and ripped him to shreds. Like I want like a good roast comedian. Like Nikki Glaser could do it.
Number one
Sebastian-
pick for this, actually. Werner Herzog needs to host the Oscars.
Why do you say him?
That'd be so funny.
Why do you say him?
I don't know. Well, obviously his voice is so calming, but I think he's just such a funny character as well. He's so good, and they just need to do someone like that, and not some idiot who just starts slagging off things. It's funny when you can tell jokes,
Yeah.
but you get a runtime joke every Oscars. It's like, can we every year someone takes a make out of films being too long, and it's the stupidest
I don't want
thing
them to
ever.
roast them. I want someone who actually cares about the movies. So that's why I'm going for Tarantino.
Yeah.
As my choice for the host of the
I
Oscars.
so disagree. I want to do a roast comedian. I want someone who rips him to shreds.
That would be so funny.
That would be fun.
Bring back director beef.
You really don't want to roast comedians?
Tarantino would just start taking the mick out of the directors. That's what he'd do.
Wait, you would take what?
Oh dear.
You cut out. What'd you say?
You just start taking the mick. You start taking the mick out of other directors. You just start director beef on stage. He would be. That'd be funny.
All right. Next question. This is a great question from Evan. Why are Nino Rota and Fellini not in talks for the best director-composer pair ever in film communities? Because aside from Morricone and Leone, they are the best director-composer pair ever. And I think it's just because
Leone and Morricone exist. That's why.
But he's right. Like Nino Rota should be brought up with like consensus when you say top composers.
Right.
Everyone's like Williams, Zimmer, Morricone, and like Rota should undebatably be in the conversation with them. And I think it's simply just because
That's true.
Those three make English language films, and pretty much aside from The Godfather, all of Rota's iconic scores are not in English, and I think that's the main reason because it's literally the best. It's aside from Leone and Morricone, Rota and Fellini, I think, are undebatably the best.
Yeah, they've just not been seen as many people as those movies.
Then we have a great finale question from Ryan's favorite Wonker. and it is. What is the best Loom product?
Oh my god.
Hold up.
What is Loom?
We got the Loom right here. We got our Loom.
You fell for the marketing.
I did. I actually went and bought it. Fresh Alpine. I'll probably never use this shit, but just because it's Loom, I bought it. We're gonna put this up here on display.
Oh dear. Yeah.
That's probably financed like 10 Jeff Profit movies.
Not an ad. Hashtag not an ad. This is not an ad. We are not. Alex is not being paid to do this.
I am not being paid one. I'm actually paying to do this.
Oh dear.
I don't think we can do last 5 watches because Letterboxd is down.
No, it's back up.
I think it's back up. Okay, I got one. I like to go like first watches, best first watches. One honorable mention, and that is Antonioni's Love and Jura. Incredible film.
Peace.
Just the master of like complex relationships and affairs, and yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. My number 5 would be.
Well, I'm very. Wait, that wasn't in your top
film.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah,
That's one of my
film
favorite
that I
films.
just finished watching before this podcast, and that is Robert Altman's The Player.
If you
really fantastic film.
Ventura, I was gonna
It might be. So
I heard Robert Altman.
I mean,
I started boiling when I heard Robert Altman. The Player's good though. The Player's good.
The Player, really
lose my mind.
really great film. Tim Robbins is fantastic. The film opens with an 8-minute tracking shot. It's brilliant. Perfect use of meta commentary. Really funny and just such a great time. Really enjoyed that.
what did you give it?
The next, I'm going to go for Frank Perry's The Swimmer at number 4. Just crazy surrealist film. Really took me by surprise. Absolutely loved it. Really tragic as well, but I would very much recommend it. Great 60s surrealist hit. Unfortunately, Alex, number 3 is The Long Goodbye.
Yeah, this is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
You don't deserve a chance to speak. This is fucking ridiculous. Love Ventura is
good. You're so done. It's such a good film. Just
close to perfection. It is a psychological character study masterpiece. It's unlike any other film. That is one of the greatest films ever made, and you're gonna rank it below this piece of atrocious dog shit that is disrespectful to Raymond Chandler's best novel, his most personal novel, and his legacy as a whole of one of the greatest writers ever. That piece of atrocious dog shit. No, what's your number 2? It's fucking ridiculous, Oscar. You have some terrible takes. You're too fucking far. Okay. Kingdom of the fucking Crystal Skull.
Number 3.
Bad enough. What's number 2? It's fucking enough's enough.
Really fantastic film, by the way. 2 hours. Elliot Gould, incredible performance. He's such a cool guy. Cool suit, smoking the entire runtime. Don't listen to Alex. Go watch The Long Goodbye. Love the way he captures the nighttime, and love the way Altman directs his actors. 3 films I've seen from H. Nasril, The Player, and The Long Goodbye, all given a 4.5. He's an incredible director. Go watch his films.
Dog shit.
Then number 2, if I've got this correct, is William Friedkin's To Live and Die in LA. Robbie Miller, probably the GOAT DP. This film looks absolutely stunning. Young Willem Dafoe. I think this is his best film. I think this is better than The Exorcist. I think it's such a quintessential 80s film. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's better. Yeah, like I said, it's better than The Exorcist. And then my number 1 best film I've watched in the past this month so far is Abel Gantz's Napoleon from 1927. It's 5.5 hours long, silent film. Been on my watch list for ages. Absolutely unbelievable film. One of the, quite possibly, maybe the greatest achievement in film history. Is absolutely staggering. The ending, I know, there's like just the last like 10 minutes, especially, is unbelievable. The whole film is unbelievable. It looks gorgeous. Yeah, nothing in history I think has ever been is made as kind of what that is. But yeah, really, really unbelievable film. I've been rewatching a lot of Alien films as well, which I love, and getting got a chance to see Spider-Man 1 and 2 in theaters, which was incredible. I think Spider-Man 2, that was a euphoric experience of those as well. But yeah, Abel Gance's Napoleon was my favorite first-time watch of the month so far.
I said let's do our last 5 watches, and I greatly regret this decision. I wish I didn't have to hear the words spoken in the last few minutes, but yeah. Ryan, please.
The Long Goodbye is so good. What a film, man! What a film!
Fucking shit. Top 3 worst.
Great film.
It's so good.
I'd rather watch The Last Airbender.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, so I'm looking at my
such a cool film, The Long Goodbye. It's like a cool guy.
Very disrespectful movie. Sorry, Ryan, please continue.
Womp womp.
My month has been full of rewatches. So as most of mine are, but my number 5 is a first watch. The Cranes Are Flying, a Russian World War II movie. Stunning black and white imagery. It is amazing, yes. Surrealism blended within. There's some phenomenal shots in this movie. 52 in the Letterboxd top 250, which we'll be doing a Letterboxd top 100 review soon. So I had to get through some of those movies, and I think that one will definitely be staying in it because that did not disappoint. Great film, great war film, probably one of the best ever made, honestly. Number 4, a rewatch. The Spider-Man re-releases encouraged me to go back and just rewatch some Sam Raimi because I was itching to do it, and I rewatched Army of Darkness, the final film in his Evil Dead trilogy. And I watched the director's cut. I loved it even more than the theatrical cut. It's like 15 minutes longer. This is such an epic of a movie. The stop motion is amazing. It honestly feels a bit like Two Towers, like level of the battle at the end, like the build up to the battle. It's I know there's a lot of inspirations just from Raimi's camera movements from Peter Jackson, like Peter Jackson's early career with like his zombie movie. I don't remember what it was called. He's very obviously inspired by Sam Raimi, so I think he may have got inspiration for this for Lord of the Rings, honestly. In those battles, yeah, just such a great movie, hilarious too. The physical comedy that Sam Raimi has in most of his movies, honestly, is amazing. Number 3, we were talking about Hitchcock inspirations for films. If you want to talk about Hitchcock going into movies, then watch Body Double by Brian De Palma. It is his version of, his second version of Vertical, basically. He does have a film that's in even pretty much as a copy of Vertical, but this one makes use of Hitchcock's set pieces so brilliantly that he's learned off of. And I love this film so much. It has a great soundtrack, has pretty much a 80s music video built into the movie, which is maybe the best moment in the movie. It's such a great needle drop. Such a great movie. It looks amazing. It's a great mystery. Go check that out if you want some Hitchcock-inspired mysteries set in the 80s. Number 2, I've also been revisiting Alien movies, and I revisited Alien the other day. Just one of the greatest feats in cinema of all time. The set, I mean, I'd seen this like several times, but it's still like insane the stuff that they managed to do with the sets. It's so incredible. Probably the best production design of any movie ever made. Better than Blade Runner. Definitely the best in his career.
Two goats.
True.
2 goats.
Yeah, just a masterclass in tension building.
Ridley giving his 4 favorites a Letterboxd earlier today, naming Blade Runner as one of his favorites is like the greatest thing ever. He's such a legend, man. But to be fair, like a lot of people call him like cocky for that. But he's to have that's so right though, because it is one of the greatest films ever made, and just to be able to say that is it's like the most Ridley Scott thing ever. But it is so right.
I loved what he said about Alien as well, that he went and seen Star Wars and he was so depressed that he wasn't making movies like that he was just upset for like 3 months, and then like 6 months later they came to him with Alien because they were looking for their own like space movie.
Oh wait, are you talking about Star Wars, the movie that you two idiots left off of the GO tier? That movie that Ridley Scott
said, that movie is so clear of Star Wars.
Yeah, the movie that Ridley Scott saw and made a better film than.
Incorrect.
It's
correct.
100% correct. This is his masterpiece. And
it's
then
one of his
finally my number one masterpiece, The Martian. Or Last Joe. Which one are you talking about? My number one,
Peak Runner.
Of course. I got to go and see Spider-Man 2 in theaters. Transcendent experience, like Oscar was saying. Unbelievable. Cried like 15 times. Not ashamed to say that. Possibly the greatest theater experience of my life. Just we done the episode on Spider-Man talking about how much I love this movie, but it's just so good. I've seen it 3 times this week. It should permanently be in cinemas, I think. I'm sad that I can't see it again, but we'll be seeing the third best comic book movie this Friday coming up, with Spider-Man 3. So it's not over yet.
I know that's your favorite movie, but can I just ask what in the movie made you cry?
It's so peak that it just
doesn't.
Not even like a sad moment. It's just it's so good.
Like, where's the tearjerker? Like, there's not like
the train scene where they like where he falls and like with the music and they like he's carrying him over the top of like 2 kids like
when he swings and transitions into Doc Ock's glasses.
Oh, that's so good.
It's so peak.
Tears are not what comes to my mind in that. All right.
Yeah, it's my 5.
You are.
All right. My number 5.
Give us your probably awful 5, Alex.
Yeah, it's so terrible. This motherfucker put the long goodbye over L'Aventura. I don't want to fucking hear it. Number 5 is Trap. We're talking about this whole episode. Don't need to say it. Number 4 is Dee Dee. Great coming of age film. One of my favorite films of the year. I'm not going to say too much because I think we're going to cover it in its own episode soon. But definitely one of the best films of the year, in my opinion, and a great coming of age.
I don't think it's playing anywhere near me, so that might be a bit hard.
We'll figure that out. But great film. Third, Matrix rewatch in theaters. It's one of the most influential films of all time. It's one of the greatest action films of all time. It's an incredible film. Not much needs to be said. Number 2, like Oscar, I have a masterpiece of 1927 on my list, and that is William A. Wellman's film Wings, one of the best silent films. It's the type of movie that if I was a kid in 1927, it'd be the film that would get me into movies. Just the aerial sequences in this film are incredible. Some great silent film performances. It's.
Would you say it's worthy of the Best Picture win that year?
No, only because Sunrise came out the same year. But
1927 is like
the best year in film history.
Ridiculous.
It's so stacked. And I saw this with a live audience.
It's absurd. It's actually crazy.
I think it's the best year in film history. I frequently say that. It's an incredible film year.
So
that's not
any year with a 7 in it is one of the best years in films.
Metropolis, Sunrise, Napoleon, Wings. Yeah, that's crazy.
And there's even
more. Did Wings win? Did you say Wings won Best Picture?
Yeah.
It's the aerial sequence. It's just awesome. The aerial sequences are incredible. William A. Wellman is such an underrated director for both his work in silent films and his work in the early talkies. He's so criminally underrated, and he doesn't get enough respect for being one of the great pioneers. Just Wings was just such an incredible, thrilling experience. I really did love every minute of it. And then number 1, one of the most perfect films ever put to cinema, probably the hardest film to make of any film ever, which is just a masterpiece on every level. greatest spectacle probably in film history, with one of the greatest internal character pieces, and that is the one and only David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia. And I apologize to everyone who listened to our underrated directors episode. David Lean should have been on my list, and that was a complete failure on my part, and I apologize to everyone listening.
But did you see that in theaters?
Goodbye. Yes, all of these watches were in theaters. I don't think I've watched anything.
I'm jealous of that one.
I have 0 at-home watches this
Oh dear. Nice.
Let's get
None
back
of them better than the Long Goodbye though. Wahey.
Shut the fuck up, where I have to fly to fucking London. Let's get back into Trap before I lose my shit having to even know be reminded of the films. It's bad enough that I've seen it. Just the fact that your take aside, just reminding me that me exists, that reminding me that the film exists makes me angry. So let's just forget that the film fucking exists. But I highly recommend everyone to read the book by Raymond Chandler. It's a masterpiece of a novel. You should read some of his other books first, but it's a true masterpiece.
Don't read it. Just watch the film.
Oscar, just stop fucking speaking. Ryan, is there a way to mute him? Like, can we mute this motherfucker? All right, let's get back to talking about that. Let's talk about some of the filmmaking in Trap. I did have a couple things on the filmmaking I wanted to touch on. I think his M. Night's juxtaposition of scenes really is so great, especially in that first act, where first we see like he walks out, and then we see like the SWAT team approaching. And then after that, we get the reveal of the phone where we find out that he's the butcher. And the way M. Night, because M. Night, when Lady Raven walks out for the first time, dresses her in this bold blue, which is kind of the standard is normally to put them in red. Red's normally the standard color. So he saves that red and that heightened color emotion for the bathroom scene first, before they're at the concert and there's the red lighting. And then we have the red bathroom stalls. And at first it's funny how he manipulates what we think, because he's telling his daughter, like, stay in the seat, don't leave the seat. And like, we're worried about her possibly being kidnapped. Like, I didn't see any trailers. I thought that's what might have happened and like been the plot of the story. And it's like, no, this guy's a psychopathic serial killer. So, and then and then after that, we see more SWAT team lining up, like way more security presence. And just the juxtaposition of those scenes, I think, is so perfect. And then after that, we get Lady Raven talking about forgiving your father. So when you just see all this on a rewatch and a scene juxtaposition, I think is really strong. I think the way he deals with exposition is interesting, because there's a lot of exposition, but it's like the character needs the exposition. He makes the exposition like an objective of the character, which I thought was an interesting writing choice. I love like the frying pan scene. I think the fryer scene is one of the best, some of M. Night's best filmmaking in the film, where he just literally moves the camera around to everything and then lands on Cooper and then into the guy opens the door, just all purely visually placing the idea in our head without us seeing it. Just like him getting the idea. And it's not a POV shot because we're on the other side. Like, it's for so many reasons not a POV shot, but the way he just uses just the images to place the idea in our head, I think is just purely cinematic, brilliant filmmaking. That's another Hitchcock defying trait, is just using images to put the idea in our head, with what Hitchcock would call pure cinema. So I think that was just such a great, purely cinematic moment. I think we talked about like those depth shots and split diopter shots, and just like the Hitchcock insider irony of like how close the FBI is to the killer without them knowing. I think both of those two shots did a great job of that. Then there's another one where they say like it's actually right around that same shot with the security room, where they're like, in 20 minutes, one of you will be talking to the butcher. And in 20 minutes, one of them it's Raven who's talking to the butcher, and not any of the FBI agents. The last two are he uses, when they're in his house and he makes a threat to Raven, he uses such a subtly odd angle where it's at a high angle from a distance, and there's like a frame within the frame, and the blocking, they're in like the top right corner of the frame within the frame. And just for that threat, like the subtlety, this is like example of like creative things M. Night does that are subtle that other filmmakers don't do. Just this really odd shot composition and blocking that I think just works so well to just make that moment subtly feel even more unsettling. And then also there's so they obviously there's the psycho influence of like the weird like mother relationship complex. And I think overall that part of the story is inconsistent. But when she first mentions it, when she's describing the profile, the way there's like this kind of very slightly and subtly jarring cut as he stands up, and like it cuts on the sound effect of him getting up, and it's a really sharp cut, and it's like breaks the tension to a degree. And I just think that cut is so subtle, but it really triggers Cooper mentally. And it's such a subtle technique and edit, but it just stands out from every other cut in the movie. So I thought it's just such a great elevating story beat that M. Night's able to do with his editing, which is just, these are all just small examples of like he uses the craft in so many different ways, whether it's the camera move or the unsettling angle for a conversation, or the way he cuts on a sound effect and the sharpness of that cut, or the weird angle blocking. Like he just has such a variety to his playbook. And I think he really is just using his playbook in so many different ways in this film, which is just why he really is such a creative filmmaker, unlike a lot of the other filmmakers that we see today. And I just think that even if these things aren't as obvious, there's just so much to appreciate about his approach to filmmaking. And the last thing, perfect thing to end on, there's nothing more exciting in an M. Night Shyamalan film than an M. Night Shyamalan cameo. He is the king of cameo.
Yeah, I think that's maybe his best cameo out of all his movies, honestly. I love the like, aspect of him like being her uncle and just being proud of her, like his daughter.
I think
really
Old. I think Old is my favorite cameo of his.
I don't know what my favorite is. This is up there, honestly.
I mean,
like this
because of that split diopter shot of him in Old, with like the camera and him as the photographer. That's so good.
Yeah. There's another cameo that I really, really liked as well.
This
when
was his
Kid
biggest,
Cudi
I think.
for the concert. He's wearing this like ridiculously long wig, and he starts flirting with Josh Hartnett. It's so funny.
It's funny.
His like ventures into acting have been so good recently.
Wait, who is that?
Kid Cudi. He's the guy that comes out into the concert.
I didn't realize that was Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some good cameos. That's going to sound so hypocritical after our Deadpool video saying that just turn your brain off and enjoy it, and then talking about the cameos. But
no. This is not a turn your brain off. Whoa. There's actual competent and great filmmaking on display here.
Yeah,
fantastic filmmaking on display. Do not put those two films in the same sentence.
He has a point. This is much better filmmaking, but he does have a point. But I think that wraps up.
So much better.
Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And does anyone else have anything they wanted to add?
Great film. Go and see it. Go and support it. Lovely. M. Night, great guy. Great guy.
Get the letterbox average up. And
yeah,
2.9 is crazy.
That's disgusting.
But we'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you for watching.